All right, it's Thursday, November 20th, about 24 hours later since I entered the closet. We are back at the closet for another episode of the Pats Interference Podcast, proud member of the slick, stupendous, and spirited CLNS Media Network. A weird week of news as we bring in Brian Barrett of The Ringer. We could start with First Take. We could start with Joe Burrow. We could start with any number of things. But I'm going to leave it up to you because I'm a little tired, to be totally frank. So lead us, Brian.
I can imagine, Callahan, and congrats on the baby. I hope you're getting at least a little bit of sleep, but I can imagine it's been not much. So I'll start with the First Take thing because I'm trying to understand the timeline of this whole situation. So Cam Newton, when he's asked, does the AFC go through Foxborough? And hey, I don't have any problem if he says no, right? The Patriots are this up and coming team right now, but he basically says they're fool's gold, which is fine. And then essentially, Drake Maye is asked that same question, like, hey, what do you think about the Patriots being called fool's gold? And he said that he doesn't know what show Cam's on. And he goes on to say, essentially, to paraphrase, everybody has their own opinion. I'm focused on everything in the building. All right. It didn't seem like anything malicious either way. And then all of a sudden, Stephen A. Smith says he's lying. He's a liar because everybody watches this show, essentially. Every athlete does. Well, not every athlete is Kevin Durant and Draymond Green that cares about everything the media says. So, by the way, he's kind of focused in that 10 to 12 window on what he's doing at his day job. So I think it's very possible that Drake doesn't watch First Take and didn't know where it came. I think that if you listen to the answer, Drake was just legitimately answering the question. And then secondarily, like they thought Cam thinks that the question was asked in the wrong way and it was misleading. Well, also, if you are saying that it's fool's gold, you are implying in some way like that is a discredit to the quarterback. He's the most important player on the team, and his big argument was the schedule. And then, like prior to that, Dan Woody is saying that Drake Maye is the top 5 quarterback in the NFL, and he's the best deep passer in the league. And Cam Newton says to Stephen A. Smith that he's going to stop having people on the air that spit diarrhea out of their mouth. And it's like, well, Cam, if you weren't so focused on calling everybody on the show by their middle name, all you have to do is look it up. Like the numbers tell you, Drake actually has the highest passer rating in passes that go north of 20 yards in the air. So you were kind of taking a shot at Drake, who idolized you growing up, did a celebration earlier this season to sort of celebrate you. But I don't know how we went from Drake answering a question to him now being a liar and Cam Newton being the guy that was wronged in this whole situation, because Stephen A. Smith says, what happened to athletes sticking up for athletes? Like if an athlete is in the media and he says something critical about people, are we not supposed to respond? I mean, Draymond Green called Dak Prescott a bum a couple of weeks ago. Were we not supposed to respond to that because he's an athlete talking about an athlete? I was just so confused at A, the timeline, and B, the aggravation on the other side of the argument. The only person that could have possibly been offended about anything here is Drake Maye, and he doesn't care.
That was a great dismount. I will tell you, though, how we got here, and it is nonsense begetting nonsense, because what was said there, as you said, is totally fair. If you don't want to believe in the Patriots because they're outrageously good on fourth down and they're winning one-score games and Drake Maye is completing approximately 99% of his deep balls, fine. None of that feels sustainable. But to your point, these are ex-athletes who used to complain about media members intentionally saying outlandish things for attention. Now retired in the media doing those exact same things. So when Drake Maye says, I don't pay attention to that, I'm too busy being the quarterback of an NFL team, he's telling the truth. And this is not a defense of Drake Maye, who we've criticized on the podcast before, all for his play. Like there's nothing he's done in the media that's been wrong. It is an attack on that show and that nonsense. And Stephen A. is wildly talented and tireless, and we're not going to spend much more time on this because largely this has been hot air and them making content for themselves, about themselves, and that's it. It's just insane to me that they would think, oh, this is so important, that every athlete knows who's on that show and who's not. I don't. And my guy Doug Kai tweeted as much today, and I just said, I can't put it better than Doug did. I'll just give him a retweet. And there it is.
Yeah, and I'll say this just real quickly. The voice of reason there was Ryan Clark, where he said it's possible that Drake didn't know where the quote came from. He said, you're on a lot of shows. Everyone knows Stephen A. Smith's on First Take, but there's a chance they don't know you're on First Take.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, that's exactly what happened.
All right, we're going to sandwich that with a little piece of information here. Ramondre Stevenson was the only player limited at practice today. It was a very hard pivot there by me. That's good news. That's great news. That means Kayshon Boutte was a full participant again. I would fully expect him to play on Sunday just based on those reports and the rest he got from what was a grade 1 hamstring strain, reportedly. Stevenson, even though he was limited again with turf toe, as he confirmed to me today in the locker room, a much lesser case than Joe Burrow, who we're going to get to in a second. His position coach, Tony Dews, I talked to after practice and said he looked like Ramondre today. I tweeted the quote out. So to me, the Patriots might be full go, fully healthy after this 10-day layoff, and that is 2 big thumbs up. Now, the injury that everyone's been talking about, and this is the other piece of bread on the sandwich that we're making here before we get into the game, Joe Burrow is ahead of schedule apparently and a full participant yesterday and now today. And to me, just like Kayshon Boutte, that says I think he'll play on Sunday. How much does that matter to you for a guy coming off of 2 months of not playing, now suddenly possibly jumping in on a 3-7 team Sunday against the Patriots?
Well, and this isn't to discredit Joe Burrow that much because obviously he's been a great player historically. He's been to a Super Bowl and he's had a ton of success in the NFL. But Flacco had a pretty good game, the first game against the Steelers. And Flacco, outside of last week's performance, has actually been pretty good for them. Their issue
Really
has
good.
not been the offense, but also you look at this game, they don't have Jamar Chase, which is obviously a massive issue after the spitting incident with Jalen Ramsey. And then on the flip side of this, you have the worst defense maybe in the history of the NFL. So even if Joe Burrow moves the ball a little bit, right, which I think he will, I just don't see on the other side this affecting the game too much because I don't see how the Bengals stop the Patriots. And one other thing I'd say about Burrow quickly here is if he does play, he's coming off the injury, as you mentioned. He has been over the past 3 years an historically slow starter, right? And I would almost look at this as another opening game of the season because he hasn't played in over 2 months at this particular point in time. Like you look at the first 2 games of the season, he's completing 58.3% of his passes prior to the injury. In week 1, he threw for 113 yards. In the season opener against the Pats, where this is like the upset of the year, remember the Patriots, the Maye win, take them to the hill after the game. They're celebrating their work.
Is life around here, by the way. I said this to Doug, and he goes, yeah, I tried to think of a story around that idea of just comparing where we were September 2024 to now November 2025. Different starting quarterback, different head coach, more than half the roster's turned over. There are playoff aspirations, blah, 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 blah. You've inversed the record basically from 2-9 or 3-9 or whatever they were to now 9-2. And he just was like, I couldn't do it. It was too much to consider all of that. So anyway, continue because those stats are really pertinent and where I was going to go next.
Yeah, I was just going to. So that season opener 165, the season before that, he completed 45.2% of his passes in a loss. 2022, he threw for a bunch of yardage, but he had 4 interceptions in a loss to the Steelers. So there's no way that Joe Burrow is in any sort of a rhythm. And he's obviously had issues starting these seasons to begin with. And as I alluded to, like this is the first time if he does play in a long time. And it's against a pretty good Patriots defense, as we've seen all season long. And there's going to be pressure on him to keep up with Drake Maye and the Patriots offense. I just like Joe Burrow is obviously better than Joe Flacco. It doesn't take a brainiac to say that. I don't know if he'll be better on Sunday than Joe Flacco would have been just because he's coming off the injury. And this is just a really tough spot for a guy to come back on.
Yeah. And, look, normally the format of this podcast is that we do the Patriots defense versus the opposing offense later in the show and then just make our game picks. But this is the biggest storyline of the week and maybe across the entire NFL, unless there's something I'm missing off of my 13% battery dad brain right now. But the point is, like, MVP candidate, you mentioned, been to a Super Bowl. Joe Burrow cold coming off the bench is very different than Joe Burrow fully healthy, hot in November with all of that momentum like you were detailing. I'd also add this is the first week of practice, not for him, but in team drills where he's really commanding the whole team and the whole offense and getting back into the rhythm of things. When I checked in off the record with someone with the Patriots, they echoed what the Patriots have told us publicly, which is they don't know who's going to play quarterback. So maybe this is all ado about nothing and just getting Joe Burrow warm for the Thanksgiving night game, which will be a division game in Baltimore against the Ravens. Who knows? Again, I expect him to play because I just don't think anyone in Cincinnati could probably tell Joe Burrow no. I don't think the mayor could tell him he can't play on Sunday in his own city if Joe Burrow wants to play. Joe Burrow's going to play. But I agree with you. And the last point I'll make is this. I think if you're the Patriots, your game plan's pretty similar either way, not because Joe Burrow's the same quarterback as Joe Flacco. These are pocket passers, one coming off a serious injury. The other one is 40, which just means you're injured all of the time if you play professional football. So that means interior pressure and forcing some tight window throws because quarterbacks who are cold and or slow or injured, it's harder for them to do. So that's what I expect from them. And I don't see a big difference from Burrow, even if he's a little bit better now, or he might not be, in terms of what the Patriots want to do and how they want to get there on Sunday.
Yeah, and to your point, it's sort of like this isn't going from Cooper Rush to Lamar Jackson, right? These
Yeah.
guys actually are going to play the same style. Like Joe Burrow loves to hang in the pocket, loves to have a long time to throw so he can throw the ball down the field. Well, Joe Flacco does the same exact thing. And like we said, we're not comparing the two players, but that's just where you're at. It did kind of get me thinking though, Callahan,
Yeah, we
just
are
looking
kind of
at,
comparing, which is fine. We can
yeah.
compare. I know people get
Well,
mad about that all the time, but it's what we do.
he's got a bum toe, right? But the other thing that got me thinking about is like just the amount of time that Joe Burrow has missed. And it's almost like an example for the Patriots of, hey guys, this is what we shouldn't do with our star quarterback, right? 2020, he goes down with the ACL. Next 2 years are awesome. 2021, they make the Super Bowl. 2022, of course, they make it to the AFC Championship game. But you look at the sacks that he was taking those years, it's insane. Because first of all, he's missed 22% of games that he was supposed to play in. In 2021, he was sacked the most times in the NFL. In 2023, he played just 10 games, 24 sacks. In 2022, 41 sacks, the sixth most. 2024, 48 sacks, the fourth most. So his 3 full seasons, by the way, sixth, first, and fourth in terms of most sacks in the NFL. Now, some of that is on Burrow, and they've tried at times, like they signed Orlando Brown, who'd been with the Chiefs, he'd been with the Ravens. And then I juxtaposed that to the Patriots. And I think I even said this on the pod. I was getting so aggravated, like during the preseason, like, yeah, Vrabel got mad about the turnovers, but it's like, oh, they got to protect. He's got to protect himself. He's got to protect himself. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is kind of why. And if you look at what the Patriots did in the offseason and you juxtapose that to what the Bengals have done recently, they put high resources to protect Drake Maye. First round pick on a left tackle, third round pick on a guard. And I'm telling you, they've been perfect all season long, but that's high investment. You bring in 2 veterans in terms of a center and a right tackle. Are they the best right tackle and centers in the world? No, but they've done it for a long time, and you wanted to protect your investment in Drake Maye. And I look at Joe Burrow, like next year is going to be his 30-year-old season. So we're talking about what, 27, 28, 29. He doesn't even make the playoffs, which is supposed to be the prime of his career. Some of it's on the organization for, oh, by the way, having the worst defense that we've ever seen, where they didn't replenish some of the talent that they did have, some of the safeties, the Bateses of the world that was like a star when they went to the Super Bowl. They didn't replenish that. They thought bringing in a new defensive coordinator would work. And you look at Drake Maye, like his 22 and 23-year-old seasons, that's when Joe Burrow was still at LSU. Like they may have just missed the window on having the star quarterback when it looked like he was going to be the competition for Allen and for Pat Mahomes for so long. And the Patriots, like they're way ahead of schedule in terms of, and look, maybe things fall apart, but they're way ahead of schedule in terms of what they're doing to invest around the quarterback. That's why you look back at the trade deadline. I'm like, good they didn't give up any high draft picks to bring in talent that was going to be temporary. It makes total sense now. This is like the beginning of things with the Patriots. And I trust Vrabel and this staff that they're not going to do stupid things like the Bengals. Sorry, that was a huge digression there. But
No,
you get the
you
point.
brought it back
It
around.
just kind of reminded. Yeah.
And I think, look, the next question, which I think we've already hit upon, is like, hey, what is this game about? Sometimes it's playoff positioning. Sometimes it's Drake Maye versus the best defense he's ever seen, Cleveland, and then Tampa. And sometimes it's, hey, it's the one time a month the Patriots are playing a good team. This game is about, if you want to take that angle of like, hey, a warning sign, like you just put. And I think it's a really good point that I had not frankly heard anywhere else this week of that's what happens if you don't protect your quarterback. Like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are not hood ornaments exactly, right? They're revving and protecting the engine. You need some airbags though, inevitably when you hit or sideswipe a car or hit something on your way driving, trying to get to the Super Bowl. Point is, they can use that as a lesson. That lesson, though, they cannot exercise and apply until the offseason. So to me, what is this game about in the more short-term interim? It's about defensively. I think I need to see them flex their muscles a little bit. And it's cool holding the Jets to 14 points. But when you keep giving up opening drive touchdowns, and you know in this instance, Bengals are better at rushing than people think, you got a good receiver, that's not too much to overwhelm you. I want to see the defense get better and better in the way we did from September to October, but haven't really seen October to November. All right, you ready to dive into this game?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. Bengals are 3-7. In case you couldn't tell that by the way we've been talking about them, they're a bad football team. They're bottom 5 by DVOA, 14th in offense, 32nd in defense, 13th on special teams. Here are their last 4 games. They lost 34-12 at Pittsburgh last week. Before that, a 47-42, a Big 12 old school air raid shootout with the Chicago Bears. That was a loss. Before that, another shootout with the Jets, Jets, who won 39-38 in your own house. And before that, they edged out Pittsburgh 33-31. So tons of points everywhere, most of them going in the wrong direction. But up until last week, all one score, and let's see, within 5-point margin, all one score games. Patriots offense versus Bengals defense. Where do the Patriots start with their game plan here?
Well, to me, this is the game where if you can't be efficient running the football against this Bengals defense, then maybe you're just not going to be efficient all season long. And I look at this Bengals team, it's 160 yards a game. Like, that is insane that you give up. And obviously that's dead last. That is crazy. And if you look at it, like Travion Henderson, he's had some big runs, obviously. I mean, you think back to the Tampa game, but the Patriots still, they're just 30th in success rate at 33.3%. And even if you go to the game where they ran for a ton of yardage against Tampa, a lot of it is on those 2 runs, right? The 55-yard run and the 69-yard run. And they didn't run the ball very efficiently in that game last week. So if it's me, I just look at, all right, Warren ran for 62 on 10 carries. He had a 35-yarder in there. In that same game, Gainwell out of the backfield for Pittsburgh had 7 grabs for 81 yards. The Bears ran for 283. And you had Davis ran for 65 on 7 carries when they played the Jets. Hall ran for 133 on 7.4 yards per carry. He had a 35-yard run. Davis had a 50-yard run. I mentioned the 35-yard run for Warren. So when I just look at it, this is the week to me where Travion Henderson should really get going and be a little bit more efficient, because he's had some really nice runs, but it's almost like he's almost like, in a weird way, like a deep threat where it's like, oh, every once in a while you're going to hit, not on the Patriots, because Booty, I don't know what it is. He's just super efficient down the field, but it's almost like the Patriots, they have to stay like, and look, I hate saying the cliche of stick to the run, be honest with the run game, all those things. But the thing about Henderson is, like, you just don't know when it's going to be explosive, and if you get a certain look. So I hope this is a heavy, and I know you were mentioning Ramondre earlier, I hope this is a heavy Travion Henderson game. And the one thing I will say against the Jets that you can take out of that, he picked up that one blitz, Callahan, where you're like, oh, this is the big concern. So maybe that means they feel more comfortable with him, because it felt like early on in the year when they put him on the field, the defense knew, oh yeah, he's going to run. They don't trust him to protect Drake Maye. So this to me is about the Patriots run game. Get it going, because I expect Drake to have a big game. I expect Booty to be, obviously he's back in the lineup. I expect the Patriots to be able to throw on this team, but I think it's imperative to get this run game going a little bit as you get ready for the Bills. Can't stop the run, and you get them in a couple of weeks. And the Ravens defense has been better, but it's still not a great defense. I would just like to be able to run the ball a little bit more consistently.
All fair. We talked to Josh McDaniels today, and, driving down or the night before, always trying to think of the questions I want to ask for him. What's pertinent? What do people want to know? What does he know that I don't? And certainly people reading or listening do not. And how do I get that information? But there was a small immature part of me, Brian, that just wanted to go, hey, do you have to log a full day of work this week because of the buffet of weaknesses that is the Bengals defense? You can probably just close your eyes, thumb through the playbook, stop, put a finger down, and that play is going to work. Because there is no matchup in this game against this stinky, horrible 33.4 points allowed per game defense that I'm afraid of if you're the Patriots. And they've got some decent players, like DJ Turner's been okay. Jordan Battle's got 3 picks. Their safety, like the secondary is fine if we're being generous. But up front, like you said, this is a very simple game. They also cannot tackle. Like, that's how fundamental and how deep the cracks go into the foundation with this Bengals defense. So you mentioned Travion Henderson. I think it's a great pick because him in space is going to be a problem. Pop Douglas in space is going to be a problem for them. I think you might even see some option run game here with Drake to, again, create space and try to open those gaps up a little bit. This doesn't seem to me to be a big success rate kind of game. I think this will be an explosive play type of game for them. And we'll see what the Bengals want to do defensively. But it is shocking to me to sit here, especially in light of everything the last couple of years, and go, I am not afraid of a single matchup for the Patriots offense the way that they're going, but they're top 5 by EPA. And again, this is the worst defense in the league. Pick a number, they're at the bottom. That's just what it is. So I don't expect this to play out any differently than what we just described, barring some stupid turnovers or some kind of freak things for them. Like, they're going to get 30 because everyone's getting 30 against Cincinnati.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is you can take out of the Jets game, like they left points on the board, right? You think
Yeah.
about the double up where they had the opportunity late in the second quarter there, where I did think for a second, like I understand why they're methodical. They want to make sure the Jets don't get the ball back, but they settle for the field goal there. They're not able to hit the field goal. They come out of halftime. They don't score on that drive. So you can go back and look at that game and say there's a lot of things to work on. And I just don't think like this whole idea of taking a team lightly. I don't think the Patriots are there yet as an organization, right? Like people are saying, like, oh, like these trap games they keep coming up. I'm like, there's not a trap game. People thought the Patriots are going to lose to Tampa. I'm like, Tampa's defense is not that good. If you get by Vita Vea, you'll be fine. So I just
Well,
like
and Joe
I'm
Burrow
trying to
fixes
think of
that, right?
something where the
Like, it's
Bengals
not
could give.
just that the
Yeah,
defense is like Joe Burrow, like, oh, this is going to be harder now. And Drake May goes, man, I know that dude. That dude's good. T. Higgins has got some points, and like even in those losses, like we just rattled off, 38 points against the Jets, 42 against Chicago, only 12 against Pittsburgh. But like those will happen. You're at home, so yeah, I think you're right. This is not a game that they're going to as Vrabel's trying to say, like take a nap.
yeah, I can't see it happening. And the one thing that I will, and I actually know, you know what, I'll wait for the defense to ask you the question about something you mentioned earlier that I just
Okay.
can't understand with this Patriots team. So I'll wait on that.
Um, I don't really have much else here offensively, and it feels like lazy, silly analysis. But I mean, we could go into their matchups up front and the different fronts that Cincinnati might want to run and try to kind of set the edge better than they have. But like the beauty of having enough talent in every place is that again, Josh McDaniels can hit any button that he wants now. Like that old identity of our identity is we don't have one. We can morph every single week has not been true until this year, since maybe the end of the 18 season, like that Super Bowl run. And even then, they were kind of more of a run oriented team. And when you get in a defense, it gives you every option and to hit every button, they can do it. So I'm not afraid here. Austin Hooper will be back. You can play more of the 12 personnel, which they want to, as opposed to the 10 and all this wrinkle stuff I talked about earlier this week. Okay, let's get to the defense. But before that, in light of all the conversation about the Patriots scoring a bunch of points and yards, if you are not yet playing Prizepicks, the primary sponsor of this podcast, which makes my late nights with my young baby watching Wizards Blazers, or we watched Hornets Raptors the other night, and I'm spicing this up, keeping myself awake because at Prizepicks, it's as simple as this. I pick 2 to 6 players. They all come with a stat. I go more than less than, build a lineup, hit set, and there it is. This is the easiest, best way to win cash while you watch sports. It could be basketball, it could be football, hockey right now, baseball is going to come along later on. Just go to Prizepicks, and this will be the simplest, easiest, best way to win money you've ever had while watching sports. And here's how easy it is. You can pick, speaking of buffets, of any of these picks to build your lineup, and I will give you 4. You don't have to use all 4. You can do 2, you can do 3, you can do whatever you want. This Sunday for the Patriots, I am picking Andy Borregales more than 2.5 point after tries. Brian, does that sound reasonable? The Patriots will score 3 touchdowns?
If it doesn't happen, we've
Oh,
run
come
into a
on.
major problem, Callahan.
Okay, yes. So it's a very solid yes. Drake May, more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. Easy enough. Kayshon Boutte, I don't know if his aunt or his family set this, more than 1.5 catches. That man is back facing this secondary. I think he's going to get the ball a lot more than 1.5 times, take more than 1.5 catches. And you already hit on this. Trevon Henderson, more than half a touchdown. I don't know if it'll be receiving or rushing. I don't think I'll have 3 like the last time we saw him against the Jets. But there you go. Those are the Pats interference picks of the week. And here's the best part. If you have not played yet, you will get $50, 50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. But the first thing you have to do is download the Prizepicks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, it's good to be right. Okay, we talked a lot about Joe Burrow. I think the Patriots will have a similar game plan either way. This is a game, though, where I would really hope that Milton Williams was around because he is the single most effective player at creating what I think will be the crux of their game plan, which is interior pressure. Is that as much of a concern to you? Not to mention their run game wobbled a little bit when he left in the Jets game, even though they won going away? Or is those just anxious, intrusive thoughts that I have?
No, I think it's fair. And if you look at it, he's third, tied for third in the NFL among defensive linemen in pressures. Now, Barmore's right behind him. The PFF has him as one less pressure than Milton Williams. But when you lose a key component to the defense like that, it's obviously an issue. I don't think it's going to be a major concern in this particular game against this Bengals team. But I do think, like, you look at the schedule coming up after the Giants when he's on IR, you're looking at two of the bigger games of the season when you have the Ravens and you have the Bills. Like, those are games you would like to have Milton Williams out there for. The one thing I will say, though, is, and I'm not saying you'd like to choose one of the two guys to be missing, but if it were me, like, I would be more concerned for this amount of time. Like, he's going to come back this season and is on short-term IR, right? From the high ankle sprain. May not be the same guy because he's coming back off the injury and all that, but I would much rather have to deal with Milton Williams being out because of the answers that the Patriots have. Like, the rest of the defense is pretty good, than losing Christian Gonzalez, right? Because Gonzalez just allows you to do so many things defensively, and it's just like, oh yeah, go cover the best receiver. There was one point, was it the Bucks game, where they I think they doubled Ibuka at one point, and that Christian Gonzalez is on the number 2 receiver at one point, like that old Revis thing that Belichick used to do. So to me, like, yeah, it stinks that they lost Milton Williams, but the Patriots have had some pretty good luck injury-wise. Yeah, Gonzalez missed the first couple of games of the season, and Ramondre missed a little bit of time, and Booty missed 2 weeks. But look around the league. Like, look at what's going on with the San Francisco 49ers. Look at what happened with the Ravens for a large portion of the season as they try to climb out of the hole that they're in. So, knock on wood that this continues. But yeah, it stinks. I don't think it'll be an issue in this game. It could be in the Ravens or the Buffalo game, but I think for the most part, you got to be grateful from a Patriots perspective based on where you're at health wise.
Let's get into the nitty gritty because, again, okay, the Patriots pass rush has been average. Losing Milton Williams is a problem. Neither you or I are all that afraid of Joe Flacco, who's been playing very well, or Joe Burrow coming cold off of the bench. Still, they've got good touch and especially downfield. And the one receiver they're going to look to downfield with Jamar Chase being out, don't spit on people. People, by the way, don't spit, is T. Higgins. And I asked Zach Core, the banquet coach, about, hey, when the Bengals know teams are likely to defend them with a shadow assignment, Christian Gonzalez, it might be just there's T. Higgins, you follow him wherever he goes. How do they counter that? And his answer was, well, they've got a lot of answers. And Zach Taylor sometimes, though this is the first time I've ever heard this about Zach Taylor, will do things you don't really see week to week in the league. And before he mentioned that, he mentioned stacks, he mentioned bunches, some rub routes, mesh concepts. But the reason I bring this up is not just because T. Higgins versus Christian Gonzalez is going to be a battleground that I think could kind of swing this game from blowout to interesting. It's that that's going to test their man coverage rules like we see in the end zone all the time when they tend to pass off receivers instead of Christian Gonzalez flying with or following the receiver in motion from left to right, whomever it might be. And that is really interesting to me because when you're in those stacks and bunches, you automatically defensively have to make a check to say, hey, do you have left and I have right? Are we going to lock and level, meaning we're just going to follow our guys, but before the snap, we'll be at different depths. So I'm not running into you at the start of the route. Is it only going to be the point of this bunch? All that stuff they're going through, and they're going to have answers to whatever the Bengals plan A and plan B and plan C might be. But if they're able to nail this on the front end, whether they switch or they shadow, whatever it'll be, that's when they can set the terms of engagement. And you don't really have to worry about them getting cute later on. Because if you're up by 2 scores, the Bengals can't really tinker with lots of more motion and stacks and bunches. They just have to go, and they have to play downfield, and the Patriots can play a little bit softer. So to me, it's as much like, can Christian Gonzalez win against T. Higgins? Okay, clearly, obviously. But do the Patriots coaches have counters to the Bengals counters of how they're going to clearly try to free the one player that could swing this game as much as the quarterback can?
Yeah, and I would say one other thing, and one player in particular, is just Chase Brown. He's had some really good games as of late. I know this is not, like, you look at the raw numbers, they're not a great running football team, but the Patriots have been obviously great against the run. But hey, we had that stat all year about, hey, no running back's been over 50 yards against the Patriots, and now it's happened with both Sean Tucker and Breece Hall. But more importantly, with Chase Brown is just the passing game, right? Like, if you look at this Patriots team, I think the middle of the field, we've seen they're vulnerable there at times. Like, Spillane has given up 483 yards in the pass game. That's the 3rd most among linebackers. Woodson, if you look at his passer rating against, it's 135.2. That's 86 of 96 qualified safeties. And you just look at some of the guys they played, right? Achane, 92 yards and a touchdown through the air. Robinson had 50 receiving yards. K. Dot, the tight end, a couple of weeks ago was north of 80 yards. Bowers, I get he's the best tight end in the NFL. He was over 100 yards. So, like with the Patriots, I mentioned Gonzalez earlier. I feel really good about Gonzalez. I feel good about Carlton Davis. I feel really good about this team for the most part in the run game. But I do think that's like the one part of the Patriots where you can kind of attack that, is that middle of the field where, hey, do they get Chase Brown, especially with Burrow just coming back from an injury? Do they get Chase Brown going in the receiving game? That would be the big concern with me, like if there was going to be a concern in this game. But more importantly, that's a concern to me as the season goes on and you get into the playoffs, because I do think that's one area that you can pick on. Now, it's much better than saying, hey, we have bad corners that can't cover receivers. Like, that's a massive issue. So I do think there's some things that the Patriots can tweak. But that'd be my one concern. Oh, my question, just circling back to what you said earlier. What is it with the opening drives? Because even the Jets did it, man. I think it's like, what is it? Almost, I think it's every home game but one that the Patriots have given up a touchdown on the opening drive. I don't understand what's going on with that. It does, and I know like that's actually up across the league if you look at touchdowns on the opening drive. But how is this team so good after the opening drive? They can't, and the red zone is their other problem. Now, if you look at it like on a per game basis, they give up the fewest red zone trips, but they're second to last in touchdown percentage in the red zone. That's one issue. And then, of course, starting the games, I think it's like, if you do the math, I think it's near 30% of the points they've given up have been on the opening drive.
I am running out of answers for this, which is a problem, because that is the question I get most on my podcast, on TV, and on radio. And it's just like, I've defaulted to, hey, every team, you ask any fan base, has a thing that everyone goes, why do they do this? Why is this a problem? Is it the slow starts? Is it a pass rush? Is it not finishing halves well? Is it whatever? And that goes for all the best teams in the league. This is the Patriots thing. And in some instances, it's just they save their most basic, sometimes stupidest mistakes. Marcus Jones is looking the wrong way, and they're playing quarters in a high red zone, and Ibuka slips out, and there goes a touchdown. Just like look in the right place. Granted, easy for me to say, looking at one camera for this entire episode. That's not very hard, but there's motion and stacks I don't have to deal with that Marcus Jones does. Other times it's Carlton Davis falling down. And so I think teams know how to attack their base stuff. And you're usually playing some of your base stuff early on in the games before you get to some exotics on third down. And when you're able to have that efficiency, again, you can kind of stay within your game plan, which teams have done in that first drive. It's when the Patriots get a hold of, okay, they're throwing a lot of flood concepts when we're in quarters into the sideline, and we got to get against that. Or sometimes it's the bootleg passes that you just get these easy completions into the flat. Then they know what to do. But even, Brian, like when they say, hey, we're going to bring the pressure to them, and it's the Saints, and you've got this corner blitz, but the Saints go, we're going to have 2 go routes in the post over the middle in this 9-8-9, and we're going to hit you for 50 yards. It's like, well, man, we're trying everything. So I don't know. But I know ultimately, if you were to ask the fans complaining about this, which is totally fair, and you could ask the players themselves, would you rather give up a touchdown in the first drive every game and then be great, just flat out great the rest of that game, or have it flipped, dominate for a first quarter and then you have issues? You would take what they're doing right now. It's just kind of a pain. So I don't know. We'll see. The red zone stuff is more I want to say pertinent and interesting to me, though, because teams are not running the ball in. I think they've allowed the fewest rushing touchdowns. I think it's 4 right now in the league. Do you see anything there in the red zone? Because that, to me, is not only just pertinent to Sunday, where the Bengals have to convert if they want to pull an upset. It's also what's going to dictate some games as we get closer to the playoffs and then in the postseason.
I don't know what it is, like specifically schematically or anything like that. The only thing I will say is, how many of those red zone trips have been when the Patriots have a big lead? Because I do feel like at times they tend to step off the gas, right? Like I felt like they did that in the Atlanta game, where the offense kind of went to sleep and the offense at times put the defense in bad position. So I wonder if that's part of it too, just like the time. And I don't think was the Jets' last touchdown, was that deemed a red zone trip? I don't know if that was technically a red zone trip. Obviously, the
no,
first
it was not.
one
I tweeted out of it. Yeah, I tweeted it, and it was a 22-yarder. I said, this won't count, but it should, because you're basically there anyway. You're on the doorstep. It's like, did you come to my house? Well, I stood outside the door. It's like, well, that's my property. That's still coming to my house, even if you weren't inside. I'm going to try to find the logs here, because that's a really good question, and the context for all these stats is important. It's just so high, though, that I'm not willing to excuse, like, oh, well, you're up, and it's not that bad. Like, you can't allow
Right.
teams once they get inside the 20 to cash in for an expected points. It's like 75% of those drives end in touchdowns, right? So 75% of 7 is we're talking, close to an automatic 2 or more points. Like or excuse me, you're talking close to like 5 points automatically once you get inside the 20. You can't have it. You can't live defensively like that.
Yeah, and the thing that surprises me the most, I would say, about it is just the fact that the Patriots, and this is a credit to the new staff, they've been really good in like this situational stuff, right? I think about some of the challenges they've used that have been very successful, where the one against the Saints was huge, where look, some of these times you probably should have to use these challenges where the officials are so bad. That was one of the worst officiated games I've ever seen. But even like the end of the half against Tampa, right? Where Drake May and Mike Vrabel wouldn't say that Drake went down intentionally, which I still think they did. I still think they were trying to buy time. They kind of got lucky there. Not lucky. I mean, a great player in Stefon Diggs and a great player in Drake May hooked up on 4th down to make a play. But even if you don't score there, Tampa's not getting an opportunity to score on the other side. So all this stuff in terms of time management. You mentioned the 4th down numbers for the offense have been really good this season. So all that stuff has been really good for the Patriots. So I'm just kind of surprised that that has been an issue in terms of their red zone defense, because you think based on the coaching staff that would be actually something that they cleaned up. So that's something I'm definitely monitoring the rest of the season, because obviously you get into the postseason where the Patriots are going to be playing, obviously, like that's pivotal. And I'm going to be paying attention against the Ravens and against the Bills to see how they do when those two teams in particular get in the red zone, because that's going to be even more difficult, right? When Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have the ability to run the ball. Although maybe Lamar doesn't, because he's like not running. I don't know if you noticed that. That's just side note.
I don't notice much nowadays, I got to tell you. It's 3 is the answer of how many touchdowns the Patriots have allowed basically
What are
in
you
garbage
averaging,
time.
man? Like 2 hours, 3 hours of sleep?
I couldn't tell you. I'm not really paying attention. Which, granted, I'm not going to keep doing this. But the first few weeks of living the life that I have now, which is I've frankly never been happier. I'm just going to forget, like mailing a letter that my wife put in my hands, stared into my eyes, and said, "Please put this in the mailbox when you walk to the car." That letter is still in my car. I walked past the mailbox, and I still had it in my hands because I was just thinking of something else or on my phone. Anyway, they've had 3 touchdowns allowed of the 24 they've given up this season. That is like garbage time and in the red zone. So that to me is not enough to say like, it's just they stopped caring. There's a lot of overlap
Right.
from the red zone touchdowns in the opening drive stuff, not so much later in the game. The one thing I'll add is this, because we did not spend enough time on Chase Brown, and we got to go soon. The Bengals are a better rushing team than people think. The raw totals are not good, but EPA and DVOA both have them as a top 5 rushing offense. I said earlier this week, I think that's a case of, sometimes them facing a lot of light boxes, and so they're going to have better rushing. You're not going to face as many light boxes when one of T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, in this case Jamar, is out on Sunday. I'm curious how the Patriots match that run game, though, because you cannot afford Cincinnati the ability to play anything other than just, one-handed football, right? Like you have to make them play one-dimensional is what I mean to say there, because that allows them to prolong the game, open up their play action. And so maybe they just go base personnel. They're like, we got 7 combined linebackers and defensive linemen, and we might give up T. Higgins on a safety here and there, but we're not going to let Chase Brown beat us, because right now that's a better part of their offense, no matter who's playing quarterback. Did we miss anything?
I don't think we missed anything for this game. The only other thing that I can think of is just praising what Stefon Diggs has done for this team, because like you look at the receiving numbers, there's no one close to him on this team, and I'm just amazed like the synergy that he has with Drake May on 3rd down. Every time it feels like they need a big completion, and I know this is like a small thing but a big thing. How many times is he like right in front of the sticks on 3rd down and Drake just finds him? Like this to me is probably like, you can look at it like Booty's obviously been a huge surprise what he's been able to do, especially down the field. But Diggs coming in, and didn't Ayuk tear his ACL the same week as Stefon Diggs? I think it was really close, whenever it was. But him coming in, playing as well as he had, and being like the leader of the offense at times, where there's that one clip where he's talking to Josh McDaniels, hey, what do you need from me here? What do you need to me to echo to all these guys? But he's been tremendous. Like, I'm not telling you he's one of the best 5 receivers in the NFL, but are you getting to 12, 13 before Diggs? Like, I mean, is he somewhere between the 10th and the 15th best receiver in the NFL, which is huge for this Patriots team. And I think he's getting better, Callahan, as the year goes on. With that being said, I like this to not be a game where you got to heavily rely on Diggs. Like let's keep him fresh for the postseason, the Ravens and the Bills.
I co-sign on everything you say, and I'm so glad you brought him up because at some point at this time of the season, we're talking to Josh McDaniels on Thursday, and we see Mike Vrabel on Wednesday and Friday, and Drake May on Wednesday, and you start to get repetitive questions about what this player has done, or what do you see from so and so, or what does this mean to your offense? But Josh McDaniels' answer to one of those questions, which happened to be about Stefon Diggs today, was just incredibly soaked in appreciation for his game and his presence. And the word that Josh used was influence on the team. And among the questions that I want to answer, this new Josh McDaniels, who's being very thoughtful and is not afraid of Belichick coming over the top and saying, shut up and don't say this and that, is like, does that influence the coaches? Because clearly he's influenced, Diggs has, the young receivers. He's unlocked a ton for Drake May. But the quote that I ended up tweeting, because I didn't get to ask that question in the next 4 minutes, was there's an energy and an intensity about Diggs that never stops. So, yeah, it's all roses. It's all thumbs up. The waiting that we've done for him to ask for more targets or kind of be an issue, which has happened at every stop. This is not media creating something out of nothing. It hasn't happened. So I've stopped waiting. I don't expect it to happen. And he just had a baby like me, so good for him. Last couple of things on this. I made not a mistake last episode, but I said I was going to drop this story about the hidden changes kind of powering the Patriots as much as Vrabel and Maye and home run offseason and the soft schedule. One of them I've already written about, which was the health. Milton Williams being their first starter. You can read about that in the Herald today. Tomorrow is their fourth down percentage, which is 83%. And that leads the league, and I get more into that. So it's not one story. We're kind of sprinkling it out throughout the rest of the week. And I found this stat today, too. Mike Vrabel has never beaten Joe Flacco as a head coach or a player, and that Joe Flacco knocked out Mike Vrabel at the end of his playing career. Like the last game Mike Vrabel ever played, it was Joe Flacco beating the snot out of the Chiefs in a frigid wildcard game in January of 2011.
Wow. And this could also be a revenge game for Mike Vrabel from when Joe Burrow beat him in the postseason, right? When the Titans were the number one seed. So it's a lot of revenge. Either way, Vrabel can get the motivation for this one. That's a crazy stat about Flacco, though. Flacco's undefeated against Mike Vrabel. Vrabel's going to have it out for him then. Good luck to Flacco if he plays in this game.
It's just, the fact that they played against one another is stunning unto itself. But Flacco beat Vrabel twice when he was with the Chiefs. These are the last 2 years of Vrabel's career because Belichick trades him in March of 2009 with Matt Castle to Kansas City. Plays there in 2009, plays there in 10. They're good in 2010, but Baltimore rolls them in that wildcard playoff game. And then as the Titans head coach, Vrabel went 0-2 again against Joe Flacco. There was one win, which I'm sure he just treasures, as the Texans linebackers coach in 2014, where they beat Baltimore. But anyway, just little stuff, and that'll also be in the column there tomorrow. Okay, game pick. What do you got for a score?
I'm going to take the Patriots to win this game. I'm going to say like 34-17. I think they win this one relatively easily. They cover the number, and I don't think it's like even the Jets game where you felt like, all right, they're not playing their best football. The Jets are kind of in this game. You never felt like you were sweating during the game. You never felt like the Patriots actually threatened to lose the game. That's how I feel about this one. I just don't think they're going to be in much trouble. I think it'll be in control.
How about a 40 burger? How about a nice Sunday lunch with a 40 burger on your plate, 40-23 Patriots? I don't know. I guess I just gave you all of those reasons. I just don't think the Bengals can keep pace the way that this is going. I do think they'll score and they'll move the ball pretty well against this Patriots defense. But like, if the Bengals are giving up 33, I'm not going to slot the Patriots for lower than that in this game, especially when they're getting fully healthy and getting Kayshon Boutte and Ramondre Stevenson back. All right. Brian Barrett of The Ringer, the Off the Pike podcast. You were doing a gambling podcast today. Promote away, my friend.
I get the Off the Pike podcast that is out. We talked with Bengals play-by-play man Dan Horde, previewed that game, got into the Cam Newton comments a little bit more in that one. And then we had the Ringer Gambling Show, which went through the biggest games of the week, the Colts and the Chiefs. We went through the Eagles and the Cowboys. By the way, I like the Cowboys, 3 in the hook. I think Dallas gets to the Eagles. So a lot of drama going on with that Eagles team. So you can listen to both those on Spotify. And one other thing that I would add, Callahan, before we leave is if the Bengals decide to move on from Zach Taylor after the season, Belichick isn't interested. He's not pursuing any NFL jobs. He released a statement earlier this week on Instagram, which also had a typo in it, by the way. They had a typo in it. I'm not saying that we have a pretty good idea of who wrote that statement, but I'm just saying, just remember everybody, if the Patriots lose, Bill Belichick will not be Joe Burrow's head coach next year, because he has taken himself out of the running already that nobody was in the running for, but nonetheless, he took himself out of the running.
That happened, what, 6 days ago? It feels like it was 6 years ago. And I swear I've not been paying attention to Bill in UNC remotely. Didn't watch whatever game they played. I think it was Wake Forest last weekend. Or maybe 2 weekends. I don't know. Time has no meaning. But you're right. That I did not deserve to be in there.
CW. The CW.
The letter I is not enwavered in the way that he used it, or she used it, meaning Jordan Hudson, and then he's at a cheerleading competition. I just tired of it. I'm just over it. But I'm glad you brought that up, because that was the ultimate "no, you can't fire me, I quit" type of statement there for Bill. But I don't know. Good luck down there in Chapel Hill. Okay, he is Brian Barrett. Appreciate you coming on, man. This was great. Thank you for bringing all the information, the metrics. I'm sure we'll have you back here soon. And it's good to be back for me. The next time we're on the show will be another Mike Giardi Monday, a live show. So get ready. We'll ask for mailbag questions. And instead of being in the closet here, I will be live from my in-laws' basement. So stay tuned for what will be a very nicely decorated, warmly heated, finished basement from Central Connecticut. Anyway, thanks, pal.